Mining is a dangerous profession. The brave men and women who do this back-breaking work risk numerous hazards, including respiratory issues, fire, explosion, and potential drowning, all of which would be life-threatening enough on the surface. But when these emergencies occur thousands of feet below the ground, there's a real risk of being trapped and suffering a horrifying death. As well as all the other threats, it's a risk even going to a shift or returning to the surface, and there have been numerous instances of elevators failing and plunging hundreds of feet to the ground below. The most deadly and one of the most terrifying of these incidents occurred on the 10th of May 1995, when over 100 miners at the Vaal Reefs mine in South Africa plummeted over 1,000 feet to their deaths after a 12-ton underground train went out of control and fell on the lift they were ascending in, resulting in the worst elevator disaster of all time. Welcome to Tales of Tragedy. For today's tale, we go back almost 30 years to 1995 and travel to South Africa, a country in the southernmost tip of the African continent. South Africa is home to over 50 mineral commodities and boasts the world's largest reserves of platinum. It's also rich in diamonds, copper, uranium, silver and gold. It was this last precious metal which was the focus of operations at the Vaal Reefs mine, named after a gold-bearing reef near the town of Orkney in the northwest of the country. At the time of this tragedy, it was the second largest mine in the country and produced gold to the value of $845 million in 1994, the year before the disaster. The scale of this mine, and many around the world, is truly staggering. It covers 40 square miles and in 1985 had 7 separate mine shafts of varying depths, with the deepest part of the mine being an incredible 2,245 metres or 7,365 feet beneath the ground. The mine would operate 24 hours a day, with shifts of 20,000 people drilling into the earth to extract the precious minerals, with them travelling to and from the surface in huge double-decker elevators which could carry over 100 workers in one go. The mine is a complex structure spread across over 50 levels, with hundreds of miles of tunnels, many of which are laid with tracks that are used to run locomotives, which can weigh anything up to 90 tons. These trains move men and materials around the complex. The Vaal Reefs mine attracts workers from many of the countries in Africa where poverty is rife, including Mozambique and Botswana. However, the good wages these men receive is due to the very real spectre of death being ever present, which means they're never guaranteed to return back to the surface after a shift. Between 1909 and 1994, 69,000 miners had been killed in South Africa alone, and a further 1 million had been injured. And on Wednesday the 10th of May 1995, 104 miners would go to work, never to return home again, and their final moments were like something out of a nightmare. At 8:30 p.m. on Wednesday the 10th of May 1995, a worker was driving a 20-ton underground locomotive on level 56 of the mine, which was 1,676 metres or 5,500 feet below the ground. The throttle of the locomotive became stuck and the driver couldn't resolve the issue. The massive engine entered a tunnel which was meant for smaller machinery, crashing through a safety barrier in the process, and carried on. The driver jumped clear as the engine barreled on, and just moments later it came to the end of the track and fell into the number 2 mine shaft. At this exact moment, an elevator was travelling up the shaft, having picked up 104 miners who were travelling back to the surface at the end of their shift. The locomotive landed on top of the elevator. A later report would show that a safety feature, which should have stopped the elevator from falling down the shaft, known as a detaching hook, was destroyed by the force of the impact. And so the elevator containing the 104 miners plunged 460 metres, or around 1,510 feet, to the bottom of the shaft, reaching a top speed between 170 and 200 miles an hour. For perspective, this is about the same height as the Central Park Tower in New York City. The force of the impact with the ground killed all the miners instantly, and the elevator was reduced to 1/3 of its size. It was a horrifying scene for those who had to recover their colleagues, with one describing the scene stating, quote, "Pieces of flesh were scattered all over, as a 2-floor mining elevator was crushed into a 1-floor tin box. Many of the corpses were horribly mutilated, and missing body parts, which were never recovered, as they had likely been pulverised. Worse still, because of the heat in the mine, the bodies began to quickly decompose. Rescue workers spent the next 2 days cutting through the wreckage to recover the remains, but this was predominantly body parts, which were then wrapped in blankets and carried to waiting ambulances at the surface. Many of those who worked on recovering those killed had to have therapy for years to come to terms with what they'd seen." The Lyon Commission of Inquiry was set up in the aftermath of this tragedy to investigate mining disasters. With regards to this incident, it was found there was no safety device to stop the locomotive entering the wrong tunnel, and that the safety features on the lift were clearly inadequate. The recommendation was that these measures needed to be installed and improved upon. Relevant changes were apparently made on the basis of this inquiry. Almost all of those killed were immigrants from Mozambique, Botswana and Lesotho. They were predominantly men who were fathers and husbands who had left their families to look for better opportunities. They would send their wages back to support their loved ones, whilst making the sacrifice of not being able to see them and putting their lives at risk. In order to assist the dependents of those killed, the Vaal Reefs Disaster Trust was set up to financially support all of their families. However, despite safety measures put in place, miners have continued to lose their lives in South Africa. In May 2023, a gas explosion at a South African gold mine caused a collapse which killed 17 workers. In November 2023, a lift at a platinum mine in the country unexpectedly fell 200 metres down a shaft, or 655 feet, before safety measures kicked in, bringing it to a sudden stop. The deceleration resulted in the death of 11 miners, and 75 others received serious injuries. Also, before concluding, I just want to mention an earlier incident which occurred at another mine in South Africa, this time at the St Helena gold mine in the city of Welcome, where on Monday the 31st of August 1987, a methane gas explosion severed the cable to a double-decker elevator and resulted in the carriage falling a staggering 1,400 metres, or almost 4,600 feet, killing all 85 on board. That's almost twice the height of the tallest building in the world, the Burj Khalifa. This fall would have taken around 30 seconds, and I cannot imagine the fear and horror in this case, and also in the Vaal Reefs mine disaster, to suddenly feel the lift plummet, seeing floors pass by faster and faster until they're just a blur, know that at any moment you were going to hit the ground, knowing you were about to die. It does make you think when you go into a jeweller's and see silver, platinum and gold rings studded with diamonds, how many people died in their production. Thank you for watching. Please like, share and subscribe, and leave your thoughts in the comments below. Also, feel free to check out my second channel called Evil Among Us, which focuses on true crime. I'll put a link in the description. Take care, and I'll see you in the next one.